Welcome everybody to What's Next for Senior Developer, the IC Track Missing Manual. I'm Lorenzo Quiroli. I'm a Principal Android Engineer at ClearScore, a fintech company here in London. And today I'm here to talk to you about the learnings in my path in the IC Track, some suggestion about how to get promoted beyond the senior level, and what the role is actually like. So before I get started with the real content, if you don't know, IC stands for individual contributor, which is used to refer to the people who actively contribute to a code base or a project, opposed to people who primarily manage people. And also staff engineer, I'm using it here to refer to the level after senior developer. In some companies, this might be different. Everyone has their own version of the tech ladder, but just for clarity, I wanted you to know it. So the question I hear most often from senior engineers, and this one that definitely resonates with me as well, is how do I get promoted? I think I've been in the same situation of wondering what's next in my career and being in a place where I couldn't really decode the set of behavior and knowledge that I had to obtain to advance. And the truth is, it's not really easy. It's pretty hard, so don't be hard on yourself. There's a bunch of obstacles you will have to overcome, and you need to know which these obstacles are. If you're working in a startup or in a pretty small company, you might not have a lot of role models you can get inspired by. Especially, there might not be another staff Android engineer. There might be at times back-end staff engineer. Those are more frequent. There might not also be a lot of availability in your company. Not all opportunity exists at all time in all places, and this is worth remembering, because even if you are amazing at something, it doesn't matter if there's no opportunity to be that role. There's also not a lot of job openings. There are some, especially in big tech, but it's way more difficult to become staff engineer by promotion compared to being promoted internally. Switching job is tricky. If you look at any other job advertised website, you will see that there are more senior developer opening compared to staff engineer openings. And finally, even if your company does provide a path to become staff engineer, what is expected from you, what you have to do to get there, might not be very clear. Sometimes the description is just about some behavior that are very difficult to action. Let me start from a story. This is something personal, but that also mix in some experiences from people I know. Meet Joe. Joe is a senior developer. He's been in the same company for 2 or 3 years now. He knows the company very well. He has always performed very well, and he really likes being in his job. Joe is really hardworking, and he's always been praised for his performance, and he wants to advance in his career. He wants to become staff engineer and get that promotion. Even if he's alright, so he's not making too much of a big fuss about it. He's just hoping he will get it. Joe is also a great team player. He's a person who tries to unblock the team whenever a problem arises. He's somebody who tries to lift people up. He's mentoring junior developers. He's doing really the best possible work he can do. And Joe has been also a key at delivering a number of projects in the company. He always tries to unblock, figure out what's wrong, and help people speed things up. And sometimes, because he has accumulated so much knowledge during the year in the same company, he's able to really speed things up and deliver some project even earlier than the deadline. And so by doing that, he gets back some free time. And what he does is he's gonna ask for more work to his product manager, because why not? You have some time, so why not get done some more stuff? He has also done some interesting contribution in the Android tech team, so he made improvement to the architecture of the app. He's definitely one of the senior engineers who is the most competent, and he's very friendly with the team, but he did not have to interact a lot with the rest of the technology team. As you know, Android is quite insulated at times. You don't end up working with other engineers very often compared to other disciplines like backend. Unfortunately, at the end of the year, Joe will not be promoted. And the reason why he won't be is his manager telling him he didn't have enough impact and enough visibility inside the company. And I think this is quite common. So I hope by listening to this story, you already have some idea about what went wrong here. What should have Joe done differently to improve the outcome of the story? Visibility and impact were two items that his manager highlighted before, but also time and expectation are two items that are worth analyzing. Let's go one by one, but starting with time. Time is literally the most valuable asset you've got inside your company. Without time, you can't do anything. So being mindful and very active in managing your own time is something essential to generate the impact that is required for promotion. Investing in yourself, using that time for personal development. If you do have a learning budget, using that time to take some course or receive some coaching is a great way to advance your career. And also, that time is yours. So as such, you will have to protect it and defend it at times. You don't have to go to every single meeting. If there's another Android developer going, you might think, am I really needed? Can I do something better right now? Try to have a more active approach and don't focus on being told what you are supposed to do, but rather what you need to do. And finally, something that was really eye-opening for me is thinking about time as a balance between promotable work and non-promotable work. This is not to say that you should only do promotable work. It's always a balance between the two, but if you are looking for a promotion, you will have to showcase a number of work that can be deemed promotable. So try to reflect about how much time you spend doing promotable work versus non-promotable work in your week. Visibility is another thing that has been quite challenging for me. I think we all live in a world where we wish everyone could see what we do objectively without us having to brag about it at times. But really, unfortunately, not everybody has the eyes on you. You can't obtain that sort of visibility without trying to get it. So if there is any tech forum in your company, any place where you can speak to the whole tech team, take advantage of that. Everything is an opportunity, that is an opportunity, and showcasing how you solved a technical problem with a wider group of people can raise the same problem in other team, can help people understand what you've done, and can help raising your visibility with the wider tech group so that you become a point of contact for future initiative. Also, finding cross-discipline problems, it's a great way to collaborate with people you don't usually work with. If you find a problem that is Android specific. Do think, is it really Android specific? Does everyone else have the same problem? If it's monitoring, for example, does the iOS team have the same problem? If it does, it's worth raising it with them. You might obtain a problem space that is bigger, that has bigger impact now, and that help you work with other people and gain their trust. Trust is also fundamental. You won't get people to do things without them trusting you at times. I always say that as a IC, you don't really have the stick. So people follow you only if they think what you are doing is wise and they trust you in this. So helping others, it's a great way to spend your time accumulating that trust, and then you can use it to spend it to make other initiatives become real. And finally, internal and external blog post and talk inside and outside the company are a great way of raising your profile internally. And you might say, well, I'm an introvert. I kind of struggle with visibility. What do I do? And I get it. I think a good way to think about this is it's not just around talking, but also around writing. You might be surprised how many people a good document written clearly, highlighting a technical problem and highlighting possible solution can go. It can reach eyes of head of engineering and other people in the company. But if you are an introvert, I also suggest to challenge yourself. Doing public speaking is not easy, but you will get there. Start from a smaller forum maybe, start talking inside the Android team and then maybe the mobile team, and go and make your audience bigger and bigger with time. You might be surprised how much practice will help you becoming better and better at this. Finally, impact is one of the biggest thing for staff engineers, and everyone is always accountable for impact. And the truth is, impact is really tricky, because how do you justify to your company, I had this impact? How can you communicate this message that you are worth the role and that you are worth the next level? The single biggest thing for me is having metric to justify what you have done. And this has been a very common mistake for me in the past. I really like to work with builds at times, and I always try to make the team productive, improve their build time, improve their performance at work, but without any metrics to measure how much, what's the improvement that was caused by my work, that isn't really worth much, right? Think about it this way. If you write in your performance review, I fixed a bug that was crashing the app during the product purchase flow, versus I fixed a bug which I discovered and fixed a bug which was making the user dropping out of the purchase flow, resulting in a revenue leakage of £30,000 per month. Those sound very different. And you might think one is more understandable to the business side of things, while the other is more technical. But really, the second is also more clear for technical people. A head of engineering will be less interested by why the bug was there, but more interested to what's the impact of this bug. And sometimes you don't need fancy metric. I understand that especially in startup you might not have all the metrics you need to measure build time and understand the impact of every single thing you've done. But something good enough is better than something perfect. If you have a way to measure the build time before and after the change and document the improvement, that is better than nothing. You don't have to have a super fancy solution covering every use case, but do make an effort of measuring what you do and take notes, because you will need to put that in your end of year review. Also become more strategic. This is a huge part of the job of a staff engineer. You get closer to the business and a little bit far away from the tech at times, because you need to reflect not just about technical problem, but how technical problem affect the business. So if your company is launching multiple apps at times, a great initiative you could look at is how do we improve the login experience for people who already have the app installed. Maybe a lot of people are dropping out after installing an app because they don't remember their password anymore. Is there anything we can do to improve this, to make the login process any smoother? You see how these align with the strategy of the business of having multiple apps. Also, finding cross-team problems. As a senior developer, you are expected to deliver especially within the team, and finding problems that span across multiple teams is a great way of finding that impact. If you are finding a solution to a specific problem, think about, does any other team need this solution? Maybe what you need to do is just raise visibility. When companies become big enough, they lose visibility about what other teams are doing. And raising visibility about what you have done is part of the job. And finally, if you need other people, you will need to spend the trust you got. So helping people, again, it's key to this. You will help people so that one day you will get something back. It's a very human process. If you had to divide impact in a matrix compared with effort, you end up with something like this. And it's pretty clear that where you don't want to be is high effort, low impact, right? You don't want to be in the situation of spending a lot of time to do something that isn't worth much. Even more, if you find a team that is doing something high effort, low impact, you might even want to stop them. It's even a way of having impact is preventing people building something useless when there is something existing that can be retrofitted or can be used to fill 90% of their need. And you will also agree you don't want to be in low effort, low impact. But this is actually tricky because it's the most addictive section of the table. Low effort, low impact things feel good. They are easy to do and they make you want more. They trigger a sort of a dopamine hit at times. You all have the example of feeling like you've been all day in meetings and your day was super unproductive. You're like, I didn't do any work at all today. While in a day where you merge a couple of pull requests, even simple one, that's already giving you something satisfying. You feel like, I merged two pull requests. This was good. I moved the ticket to done. And that is the best feeling in the world, right? As a staff engineer, you don't want to end up here. It's fine if you do some of it, but be mindful about how you spend your time. If you spend too much time doing low effort, low impact work, you will get done a lot of stuff, but they will be deemed non-promotable, so you will end up in that situation. And clearly where we want to be is low effort, high impact, right? That seems like the sweet spot, but it's too good to be true. What can I do that is low effort and can have a huge impact on the business? Sometimes the advice is to look for problem space that are unexplored. So if your company has never cared about security, for example, you might find some low-hanging fruit there. You might find a security vulnerability your app is affected by, and you might fix it. And you might argue, well, you just said my app never cared about security, so why would they care if I do something to improve the situation, right? And unfortunately, you are right. But as a software engineer, you should make an attempt. You should not spend the whole of your time doing this, but security is important as many other things, and you should try to make an attempt to change things. These attempts are mostly unsuccessful by experience, so if you fail, don't take it personally, you did your job and you fulfilled your responsibility to at least attempt to make your company care about security. So eventually, you will need to move to high effort, high impact, which is very classic for staff engineers, because the feedback loop for a staff engineer become way longer than a senior engineer, which can merge a pull request and repeat. So you work on higher effort task, but even get the ball rolling is a great start to demonstrate some impact. Finally, expectation was something that wasn't very clear. If you do want a promotion, especially early in your career, you think, oh, I will not mention this, I just got hired, I don't want to ask for something. The truth is, no company will get pissed at you for asking a promotion. And if they do, that's quite a toxic company. You probably want to get out. So do start this conversation as soon as possible. Your manager, it's not your manager paying your salary, so he won't mind if you ask. Align the information available with what you want in your career. Clearly here there are two things. There are the opportunities available in your company, and there's what you actually want to do in your career. So somehow you need to find that sweet spot where you think you can actually have a role there. Assess honestly yourself, so look at your strengths and weaknesses and don't take them as something that you can't change. You have the power to improve. If you have an educational budget, again, spend it. It's not just books. Like in a lot of cases in my career I felt, oh, how do I even read £1,000 worth of books, right? You can get coaching from other people, you can get courses. There's a bunch of stuff that you can do with your learning budget. Finally, understand the expectation in your company for a staff level engineer. You want to understand from job posting what being a staff engineer means for the company, from the tech ladder, and from people by talking with them. So if there are other staff engineers in the company, talk with them, ask them their own opinion. If there are not staff engineers in the company, you can get mentoring from outside the company. There's a bunch of websites where they offer mentoring. Some of them you have to pay. Again, if you have a learning budget, spend it. Others are even free, I believe. Finally, don't take personal performance review as something annoying and a waste of time. The first person to believe in yourself must be you. So invest in your performance review, invest some time in it, write what you've done during the year clearly, don't hold back your impact, don't underestimate yourself, take note during the year. Personally, I always felt I never remember everything I've done. You tend to forget smaller things that might have a powerful impact. So do write down things as you go through the year, and then you will have a bunch of action that you can put in your performance review. Give value to your one-on-ones, because one-on-ones are really check-in. You should not arrive to your end-of-year performance review and feel surprised by the outcome. Those one-on-one should serve to give you progress or how you've been doing and help you understand what you've done wrong, what you have to improve, what you're doing great. And do spend time making a case for yourself. You are your number one advocate, so do spend time making a case about how you have an impact. Don't hold it back. I've heard a lot of time from senior engineer, I will not evaluate myself at the top level because, I just don't think like it's right. And I truly believe those senior engineers were really exceeding expectation. So don't hold it back. Don't try to assess yourself honestly, because when I say honestly, I mean that people tend to demote themselves rather than sell themselves at a higher level. Now, hopefully, after all this, you will eventually get there. But what's the role actually like after you've been promoted? Well, I think staff engineer is different from senior engineer because there are different archetypes. It's not such a straightforward role that is more of the same in every single company. Staff engineer depends a lot on the company they're in. The expectation, the requirement, and what they do can be widely different. For example, this is from a book I've read called Staff Engineer Leadership Beyond the Management Track. And it talks about the fact that there are a number of archetypes of staff engineer. The first one is the tech lead. So the tech lead sometimes exists even in the M track. And the tech lead is somebody who's primarily responsible for the team, for the health of the code base, and is an enabler of the discipline success. So making sure that the Android team is productive, making sure the tech stack is fine, and so on. The architect, which is more frequent, for example, in the backend space, is somebody who guarantee a specific domain success. So for example, API design, you will have an architect that work with engineer, understand their needs, and architect in a way that the system can scale. The right hand is something I've never really experienced in my career, but there are staff engineers that work closely with an executive at times. So augmenting the influence and understanding how some business decision can affect technology team. And finally, the solver is somebody who works on particularly intricate problems across the business. And when I thought about the role, I really struggled to define it clearly because ultimately a staff engineer does everything a senior engineer does, just maybe less, and instead it adds vision because you really need to define the future of the technology team of a particular discipline. So looking forward in the long term, we said before that the feedback loop is way longer, which at times can be frustrating for staff engineer because they most likely cannot have a fast impact as senior engineers do. It's also injection of technical context into business initiative. You will get an idea of we need to do this particular feature, and you will need to understand and add the technological context into it, understanding what it means for the business, understanding how it fits with the current tech stack, and if there's any trend that you need to change because of it. Ultimately, it's about longer term impact, while senior is more focused on a shorter term impact. It's most likely that as a senior developer, you don't have any objective you need to reach a year from now. What you're focused on is what product need to do right now. You will just work on that, and then something else will come up. There are some longer term work which is likely the Android code base. So if you are doing any migration, for example, Rx Java to coroutine, that's the sort of thing that take a long time. But stuff is really a lot less short term and a lot more longer term impact. But it's not just that, it's a lot more. I think sometimes people tend to forget how much staff engineer is a leadership role. We tend to put leadership too much in the managerial track. But leadership is an essential part of being an engineer. You will have to lead, you will have to drive alignment inside the team, and you will have to really represent the technology team and be an example for everyone else. Writing also become a way bigger part of your job, and I don't mean writing code. Most likely you will give up writing code, not completely, but at least partially, and write many more documents, many more proposals, and practice a lot more your writing. Strategy, because again, as a senior engineer, I never thought too much about strategy, but understanding the business, understanding your own company, what are the company needs, what are the company threats, how can I help reach our goal, is something that is demanded much more from a staff engineer. Reviewing, especially proposals, but also code, of course. Mentoring others, because as a staff engineer, one of the best way, and maybe one of the most easy way you can have an impact, is really to help other grow, help other improve as software engineer. This is how you can have that sort of effects on multiple people that creates impact, right? It's much more easier for a manager to have a bigger impact because they are managing people, right? So if their team is doing fine, they can say, oh, I had this sort of impact on the people I manage. But for a software engineer, it's much more difficult because you are a single person and you don't have a team you can guide at times. So it's up to you to create that impact and that ripple effect. Anticipate problem, because your job is very focused on the long term, and this is why you need to understand what are the future problems our tech stack is going to experience, what are the future problems the company will end up with. If you have a endpoint or a service that won't tolerate the load when you scale too much, that is a good problem to raise early rather than later. Delegation, because again, you want to delegate that low effort, low impact work, right? What is low impact for you might actually be high impact for a junior developer. So delegating and helping them navigate through it is a great way of achieving the impact you're looking for. Scaling, because in a lot of times, the more your company scale, the more the bar for tech debt is raised, the more the bar for tech quality is raised. And this is why we always have tech debt, right? We are never really done with the tech debt. And helping your company scale in a sustainable way is something you can have an impact on. And finally, interviewing, where of course you will help with the process and help understand, contribute within the interviewing process and define the requirement for a different role with some of your colleagues. And finally, how do you actually perform as a staff engineer? Well, if you have joined a new company, my advice is, I know that impact is requested from you, but most likely you won't be able to have immediate impact. So take it easy, don't rush too much any decision, and don't think that being a staff engineer means you are the smartest person in the room. Don't join a new company and think, oh, I can change everything. Instead, gain knowledge of all the historical decisions the company took, why they took them, talk with people. It's way more important that you gain the trust of people and the context of the technological decision of the past. These are the foundation that you will use to operate as a staff engineer. And also understand the strategic goal of the company. Clarify the expectation on your role and understand how you can have a positive impact on the business. If you have been promoted instead, the chances are it might be even more difficult because at the beginning you might not feel like your job has changed much, but the reality is the expectation on you have changed. So you will need to embrace that change. You will not be able to do the same work you were doing before because otherwise you will not be operating at staff level. So find staff level work and delegate what's not staff level work. Probably this implies writing less code than in the past. I think in the tech ladder, when you reach senior developer, that is the moment where you're able to deliver the biggest amount of code, because it's a relationship between the time you have and what's required from you. So you're very comfortable writing code, you're able to write it quite fast, and you're delivering a lot of code. After the promotion to staff, you might end up actually writing more documentation, more proposal, because those have an impact that span outside the code you write. It has an impact that affects multiple people. And that is all. Thank you all for attending.